I'm CK. Tonight we've got another kit from Vigurtime or Vigurtime. They seem to spell it both ways. This is their AM/FM radio kit. We'll put it together, see if we learn anything, and see if it sounds good. And I hope you enjoy the video. The box, it's an AM/FM radio kit. It's a fun project, fun time, which I'm sure we'll be having. This is VT-16. So that's Vigurtime or Vigurtime 16. I did 17 the other day, so I still have some to catch up with. Let's see. We'll open this up here. And open the box. What do we got? We've got a big old bag. Nothing else in the box. So we'll get it ready for recycling. And open her on up. And this is Vigurtime. Got a piece of paper here. Okay, that's the way it looks. We'll look at the piece of paper after we get through looking at everything else. So here's the circuit board. It is, okay, looks pretty simple. We've got an antenna here, AM antenna, and an FM antenna goes here. Tuning, volume. We've got a switch here, power switch here, two speakers of course, an LM 4863, I'm not sure what that is, diodes, resistors, and capacitors that all have their values marked, and that seems to indicate to me that if we flip it over, yep, we've got a IC, which I believe is the somewhat ubiquitous FM/AM tuner all in one. This is a really neat chip. Speaker connections, power, battery, so you can power it from DC power or a battery, I guess, if you want. And it's got a little handle so you can carry it around. Impress your friends. Got some electronics in here. Get a parts bin ready. And here we have all the resistors on a piece of cardboard. Who else does this? Elenco does this. Oh, look at this. This is a sticker on top. They must have changed some resistor values along the way. Let me see if they, oops, wrong side of the board. Let me see if I look on the other side of the board. No, the 160s and the 68K are marked. The two 160s and the 68K, which are on that sticker, are marked. I'm going to peel the sticker back and see what it says, because we don't really need the sticker, since we can either read the color bands ourselves or we can just put it on our meter. And it looks like that was a 150 at one point, and that was a 190. 191? The heck kind of value is 191K? And what was the 68K? I'm having trouble getting that one off. And this one doesn't have anything printed on it. No, it does. I'm sorry. This corner didn't go so well. 47K. So they've changed from 150K to 160K, 191K, which is a weird value. In fact, I don't even know how. Well, I'll figure that out. And a 47K. So they've changed resistors along the way. That's dandy. We've got our two pots. Put those in a different bin. I don't really know why. Why don't I just put them in the same bin? There's not enough parts here to get confused. So that'll be the tuning one, right? That's a, yeah, I believe that's tuning. And this is, see, This is a stacked rheostat, potentiometer. It's got two sets of pins because there's basically two potentiometers in there. I'll figure out why in a little bit. And then some knobs. They're plastic. Looks like they may be 3D printed, and they've got plastic inserts. And again, for this level of kit, I'm not surprised at that. In this bag, we've got two switches, one big capacitor. What value is that? 470 microfarad, and then a smaller 4.7 microfarad DC power connector. Here we have the antenna, which I'm very glad about, because whenever I have to wind my own antenna, I always mess that up. I'm not good at winding my own antennas. I learned that when I first wound my first coil for a crystal radio from Cub Scouts back in 1968. That didn't work out too well. I don't have the patience to wind coils very well. Battery box, USB power cable, antenna, and then in here we've got two speakers. They are 8 ohm, 1 watt. That's not bad. That's a nice little powerful speaker. Let me take a look at the speaker cones and see if they're okay. Oh yeah, these are fine little cones. That's a little bit heavy on the shellac. That'll cause distortion. But this is not a high-end stereo. Wires to connect the speaker, I guess. Then we've got some caps, socket and the IC, some disc caps. Looks like, oh, there's an inductor in here. So this is an inductor, you can tell, because it's wasp waste. It's narrower in the center on the ends when you compare it. A resistor, they look like resistors, but they're not. You can tell by that wasp waste that it's going to be an inductor. And let me dump these out. Oh, and there's a timing crystal in here too. Little timing crystal. It doesn't have anything marked on it, so I can't read the frequency. And nuts and screws and spacers and stuff. So let's see what the material in here. And the radio circuit is mainly composed of the FMIC SI4836, which I've used before, and then the 4863 is an audio power amp. Okay. Tells you how it works. Oh, it has a nice little schematic. Now here, okay, I see what they're doing with this. This is the volume, as we know, from the board, and it's double stacked because it's got, these are the two variable resistors, and they're going through this cap to each side of the amplifier chip. So it looks like instead of having a single volume setting, you have a volume setting for the left and the right channel. Huh. Okay. You can do that if you want, I guess. Because again, it's coming, here's the FM chip, and you can see it's got R out going through this resistor to that rheostat, and we got L out or left out going through that resistor and that part of the potentiometer and onto the amp. But this is a good diagram. Shows you how to set up the power amp And it certainly shows you how to set up the stereo chip if you ever want to use that yourself. Tools you might need a soldering iron. Solder. Okay. And here's the assembly guide. Resistors first, showing you how to put diodes on, showing you how to put the ICs on and everything. Now this looks pretty good. This looks like a good, let me back up a little bit again. This looks like a good learning kit. I think anybody over the age of 10 could probably manage this pretty well. And since I'm over the age of 10, I'll get the soldering iron heated up and we'll put it together. Something I like about this board is that the components are all spread out pretty well, so a youngster wouldn't have to be fighting in small spaces to put things together. So we'll start with the resistors, as the build guide recommends. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And we'll see how this board takes solder. Oh yeah, very nicely. And it's through-hole soldered, so it's even more secure. So that's nice. And that's the resistor on the board, the first one. And as typical on my channel, there's not much more to say about resistors, so I will speed up the playback, mute the commentary, probably cut some of it out, because it's time for you to enjoy resistor time. Now that's almost resistor time done, but I did leave one out because I did want to mention something. So the way these leads are bent to go through the paper is kind of a problem, because when you take them out, even if you take them out straight as an arrow, there's a kink in the wire that you gotta kind of smooth out. If you don't, it'll be a little snaggly going through the hole, and you might have seen, unless I cut it out, I had to use my needle nose to pull a couple of the wires through because they weren't cooperating, because they had already been bent once and made a little kink going through the component hole. Now we'll do the two diodes. We'll do the regular polarity protection diode. Got a silver stripe on it showing where the cathode is, and on the circuit board one end has a little line showing you where that silver end needs to go to make sure it allows current to flow one way and no current flowing the other way. And then we've got an LED, a red one. Long lead is positive, short lead is negative, and there's a plus sign by the square hole, which is where the positive will go. So we'll put that in there. And while we're here, the next step is to put the IC chip on, so I'll do that at the same time and solder that at the same time I solder these others. So I'll just set it down on my solder pad like so. Solder one leg. Let it cool, pick it up, and all the socket is down firmly so I can solder all the other legs. What do they want to do next? Now we're going to put the caps on. And the big 47 micro. Long lead is positive, short lead and white stripe is negative. And on the board, There's a plus sign right there and a shaded section. The plus sign is where the long lead goes. The shaded side is where the negative short lead striped side of the capacitor goes. We've got a couple of these. We've got a, oh, did I just drop something? Yeah, I dropped a disc cap. We don't want to do that. There are two. So this is the, I'm sorry, I put the wrong one in there. That's the 47K. There are two 470s. This is a 470. I didn't look at the markings. Always look at the markings, even if you think you know what you're doing. And there are two 470 microfarad caps. I wonder why. That's a little, seems a little big. I guess it's to, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. I'll look at the circuit schematic in just a second here. And we've got one 47. Same thing. We'll solder those. I'm not seeing where they say to actually put the... Oh, they put the... They wanted to put the disc caps on right after we put the resistors on. Oh, interesting. Every solder joint should be like a small hill after soldered. It should not be soldered skips, pseudo solder, or short bridge solder. Okay, I agree with that. I keep knocking stuff out of my parts tray. But, since we did forget to put the disc caps on, we'll put them on now. I think they're all, nope, they're 474s and 20s. Now we'll put the inductor on. This is a 270 micro or nano Henry. Henrys are the unit for induction. Put that on. And then they say to put the speakers on before the rheostats, but I'm going to put the two switches on right now. I think these are the same. Let me double check that. I want to solder these both at the same time, and I don't want them to fall out, so I'll put a little card behind it, set it down, take my card away, and they're staying in position. But I'm gonna, they're not, this one is fully against the board, I believe, but the other one isn't, so I'm gonna just tack one of the support pins and then lift it up again, and you can see that switch is all out of alignment. So I'm going to press on the switch handle, reheat that solder. You might have heard it click, and it went flat. Perfect. The other one is all good, so I'll just solder up those connections. And that's those bits. Now we're getting into the, oh, actually I'm going to do the power connector while I'm thinking about it. It'll go on the back. I'm going to use the battery box to level the circuit board out a little bit while I solder that. Now they would like us to put the speaker mechanically on the board. I'm gonna do a little prep work here first. So we're going to be putting the speaker wires into these pads, and what we're going to want to do there is we're going to want to put a little dome of solder on each of these pads. And then we're going to put the wire in it, and I'm doing this before I put the speakers on so I have a better idea how I want to align the speaker. So I'm going to reheat that solder dome, put the wire in it, and voila! Just be sure not to let go until the solder has completely cooled, or the wire will move away, or something will happen and you'll be sad because you have to do it again. I had to do it again right there just because I did it badly, not because I moved. Okay, so that's the way the speaker wires go on, so that'll give us a little bit of a guide as to where we're going to aim on the speakers themselves to put the wires so we can get to them easily. Now, let's take a look at the hardware. We've got a little brackety kind of thing, and they would like us to put it on kind of like that. So we're going to get a screw, put it through there, get our bracket on it, and I know from long experience I'm not going to tighten this right yet, and I'm not going to tighten this until we've got all 3 brackets on. One is going to go kind of under the speaker wires, like so. Now obviously if I had put the speaker wires on second after I did this, it'd be a teensy bit easier, but not enough to really matter. And I'm going to let the speaker go to the side for a second while I get all the bracketry on loosely, and then we can capture it. Now we'll get all the brackets lined up and rotate the speaker a little bit so that the lugs are not near the bracket. Get this bracket spun around there. It's a little bit snug, so just take a screwdriver. You'll probably want to get a small wrench and hold the nuts on the back. I don't really need to. It's good and tight. Good and tight. And tight. Now we're going to put the speaker wires on, and there's a little hole here. Red side goes to the positive, the hole marked with a positive plus sign. You may want to hold the iron on there a little bit longer because the flux and the solder will clean up some of the layer of oxidation on the solder lug. And that's one speaker. And we can do the same thing for the other one. And I'll do that in fast motion. And the speakers are on. And now we'll put the 2 pots on. Try to put the pots on. I'm trying to get the pins lined up. There they go. Well, that's going to stay in place. Tension from the pins is keeping it in place. Let me get a different piece of solder. Put the volume on, the tuner on. Same thing. This one, because it's not as press fit in. Actually, it might be if I put this locking tab in. Oh yeah, that'll stay in while I solder it. Actually, oh no, it's staying in just fine. Now we'll put a couple of panel nuts on. This is a 10 millimeter socket that I have on my workbench for all standard potentiometer panel nuts. Okay, now we're going to take a stab at putting the antenna on, but first I'm going to do two things. I'm going to recycle the cameras, and I'm going to find my freaking hat. Now this can get a little challenging for a youngster. You got to be kind of careful with the antenna because it's got this very thin wire wrapped around the ferrite core, and then these are the leads that we're going to solder to here where it says AM antenna, and we just don't want to disrupt those coils of wire very much. Now these are what's going to hold it. So what I'm going to do, having done things like this in the past, I'm going to put these on, this one on first, and twist it to lock it in place. Actually, I might have wanted to do this one first. I have just changed my mind. I'm going to do this end first because they've got shrink tubing around here for some reason or other. I don't really know why, and I think I'm going to have to push this on. Yeah, takes a little bit of effort. Where the other end slid on very smoothly. So I can kind of shove this forward like so, and put this one in like so, and then slide it back. And the shrink wrap will, I guess the shrink wrap is here to make sure it is firmly in these plastic supports. Yeah, your youngster may want a little helping hand doing this. In fact, that's just not, I'm not happy with that. I'm taking it back out and pulling it back a little bit. Now it slides in there. Now we're all good. We're going to take the antenna wires and put them in these little bitty holes here. I think I'm going to put the battery box on. I'm not going to use the batteries, but as you can see, this doesn't really stand up. So I'm going to, the battery box is what we'll kind of lean on to stand it up, and we've got two spacers to make it stand off the board so it's not touching anything in particular. Don't do this one tight. This one has a little slot instead of a hole, so it slides back and forth like so, so we can adjust things. If the battery box holes, screw holes are not perfect, we can make little adjustments and it won't matter. And you'll notice I have not put the amplifier integrated circuit into the socket yet, because while I'm still gorilla handing around. So we're going to be doing the same thing with our little solder pools on the battery connections. And I'm going to solder the wires in right before I put the battery box on, because if I don't, then the battery box will be over these pads. And that's what I recommend for, again, a youngster doing this. You don't want them to have to be trying to solder between the battery box and the circuit board. Give it a little space. Okay, oops, see, I didn't let it cool. Just when I had set it, just a few short minutes ago, I didn't let it cool enough, and it came out of the still somewhat molten solder. Oop, I did forget one thing, didn't I? I sure did. Let me double check where that goes. It's right there. so we can get that. I forgot something, lads and lassies, but we'll get to that in a second after I put this screw through here, which is being a little bit of a pain. So now we can get that one aligned with that post, which we did tighten. Don't tighten that one all the way yet either. Now we'll slide the loose post until it's lined up with the hole. There's a little stand. Oh, it won't. Actually, it's... Oh yeah, it does. Kinda. I should have moved those holes up a little bit more. But one thing I did forget, I forgot to put the timing crystal in. And it's a 32.768 Hertz timing crystal according to the circuit board. I just got to lift these speaker wires out of the way momentarily. I assume that this crystal is timing the intermediate frequency, but now we put the FM antenna on, which is a lot less complicated. It's just a hole here, and we're going to affix it like that. And there's a little cutout for the base of the antenna to nestle in. Oh, this is threaded. Oh, okay. There are two more nuts in there, and I didn't know why. I thought one of them might have been for this, but no. The shaft, the flange on the bottom of the antenna is threaded. Now that is metal-to-metal contact on there, but just because solder is always a nice addition, I'm going to put some solder along here. I'm going to leave the iron on here for a while because there's a lot of heat sinking going on here. And there, we've got a bead of solder that's flowed into the junction a little bit, so we get a little bit more conductivity. Now I'm going to put the amp chip in, and we've got the notch on this end, as you can see on the circuit board and on the socket. And there's, oops, one of these pins is bent. Look at that. I gotta straighten that with my needle nose. Carefully, always be careful when you're straightening pins on an IC. There we go. Seat it well. No pins bent, all pins in. Now we'll put the knobs on, just press them on, because they're not too precision. And there we go, that was quick and easy, wasn't it? Now, let's give it a go. I've got cable with this power connector already available. Make sure power is off. We'll plug this in here. And now, turn power on. We got a red light, which according to the instructions means a station is tuned. Going to turn the volume up. It's working. Let's try a little tuning. No strong signal, so the LED is off. I'm going to turn this light off so you can see it a little better.
Mike's already done some damage with the hot wings, and now he's dropping back.
So it's picking up AM signals pretty well. Oh, I'm sorry, this is FM. This is not AM. And I don't even have the FM antenna extended. That works pretty well. Let me flip over to the AM band now. Well, it's showing me a signal, but I'm not hearing anything. So the FM signal works a lot better.
There are security concerns following comments he made.
So that's a dandy little radio, isn't it? As you saw, it went together very quickly. If you're working with a youngster on this, again, the two things you'll have to provide some assistance on are putting the speakers on and putting this AM antenna on. Other than that, it would be a great first kit for someone, and they come up with something that they can use as long as they want, a nice little radio. And I hope you enjoyed the video.